Welcome to the Voice of Oneness, your call to awaken. This show is your call to awaken to the truth of your being through the teachings of the Voice of Oneness, spoken by Amara. On this show, you will receive spiritual guidance and the teachings of oneness from the heart of spirit directly to your heart, along with the tools and techniques to apply these teachings to your day-to-day life. Tuning in each week, you will grow in a deeper, richer understanding of your true nature as teachings are offered about universal spiritual laws that govern our lives. You will learn the right use and application of these laws to achieve the richest life from the perspective of experiencing abundance in all areas of your life. Amara Bonet is a renowned psychic, spiritual teacher, coach, energy healer, mystic, and gifted visionary who taps into the higher realms to join with the vast collective of source energy. Now, your host of Voice of Oneness, Amara Bonet.
Good evening, friends, and welcome. Welcome to the Voice of Oneness, your call to awaken here on WLTKDB Radio. I am your host, Amora Bonet, and I welcome you here this evening. We have a great show in store for you. And I have some exciting news from the station to begin with. Once again, to announce the creation of our downloadable calendar, which I am using myself, and I find it amazing that it just pops up on my screen when there's a show on that I want to watch. You can download the calendar on the main page of www.wltkdb.com. And not only does it add the live shows to your calendar, but also provides links to join right in. So you just click right in and you're there. It's very easy, and it's a wonderful tool to have. So we now have a downloadable calendar so you don't miss any of our great programs because we have so many. This is such a wonderful station offering so much information. Really check out all the shows. They're not to be missed. There's so much, so many. Before we begin, I want to remind everybody that this is truly a dialogue from the heart of spirit to your heart. The Voice of Oneness is a stream of consciousness that flows to me and through me to you. It's not like we're going to do a channeling and we're going to let some other entity in here. This is a stream of consciousness that's flowing directly to and through at all times. So your questions fuel the dialogue, add to the fullness of it, the richness that we all experience from a dialogue. So I encourage everyone, if you have questions, please submit them in the comment section. If you're unable to submit your questions in the comment section during the live broadcast, please send them to me, Amora, at Amora at let me use at askamora.com. Amora at askamora.com. And I will answer your questions either next week on the show or direct to you through your email when you send me your question. Good evening, Courtney. How are you? Nice to have you joining me this evening. Thank you. Tonight's topic is Atlantis, fact or fiction. And for many, Atlantis is a mythical land, a lost continent. And for many others, it is a fact. And throughout the years, stemming back from Plato, ancient Greek philosopher who wrote about and spoke about Atlantis, there's been a lot of stories told about it. And it has also come into play that there's been a lot of research through the interest of different scientists, archaeologists, and different people looking into and researching the subject. And what may be found is, if we look at the facts, Facts are that many different cultures throughout the world have stories relating to Atlantis. And these cultures didn't necessarily know of one another or ever have any contact with one another, yet they tell of the same stories. And these cultures consist of the Mayans, the Egyptians, the Hopis, and others. And they tell of the same stories. And there's a reason why they do. And there's a reason why I chose this topic for tonight. I chose this topic for tonight as it gives us a backdrop for people to understand what's going on in the world today. And people will say, oh, there's obviously a darkness. There's obviously this evil. There's obviously a battle between dark and light, evil and good. And this is what's going on. And understanding Atlantis as an ancient civilization, and for which about 70% of the population on the globe at this time have a history in Atlantis. And Atlantis had 3 different periods to it. During one of the 3 periods had a history in Atlantis. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. So we understand. So we have an understanding of what's going on and what is actually the Great Awakening. Because many people think the Great Awakening is some spiritual experience that they can have to take them from a 3D, which is the 3D, the very dense material dimension that we're in, and to a 5D, which is a higher dimension, one of love, one of more higher spiritual development, a higher vibration, a different experience than the 3D. That is a side effect of awakening. It's not the goal. The goal is much, much more than that. So when I listen to people and I have different clients and I speak to them all day long and I hear what's going on, I said, well, let me address this. Let me address this in a way that we can put it into perspective and we can understand what's really going on and understand that there is a struggle between power forces, the force of love and the force of darkness, the force of fear. And this has been going on. I mentioned my last podcast has been going on for a very, very long time, and that's true. And I could date it back all the way to the Atlantean period. And Atlantis is actually real. It's not mythical, it's actually real. And when we consider in our day-to-day lives that which we see and that which is, the non-physical is that which is all around us, but we see the physical. We only see a small percentage of what is real. We do not necessarily see the non-physical, but everything that exists in the physical world came first from the non-physical into manifestation, into a 3D, a more lower dense dimension of a physical object. It came forth first from the non-physical into the physical. So when I say every week, I remind that we are energy, everything is energy, and vibration is what matters. The vibration that we are within our consciousness determines the experience that we have. So that's very important to hold in our conscious awareness that vibration matters. Our thoughts matter. Thoughts are things, they have a vibration to them. And it's important to pay attention to our thoughts. It goes back to the very beginning. As creator beings, first on this planet, and we can go back to, and we will go back to Atlantis. And before Atlantis was a land called Mu and Lemuria. And those were the first actual colonized civilizations on the earth that were developed from the law of what we call the law of one. They were developed from the law of one, which, if we could think of it as the law of one, is those that lived in communion with God, those that lived in communion with spirit, understood the laws of this physical universe, understood the universal laws, the laws of God, and lived and abide by them always in all things. So they lived from the field of love, of purity, and of unity consciousness, a very high vibration, very high spiritual understanding and way of being. So they began in Lemuria and Mu, and then also in Atlantis, there is the land, the law of one, those that followed the law of one. And there are also those that follow what we call the law of Belial. And that's the darkness. That's the power, military might, the corruption, the greed, the lust, the things that we are experiencing in our world at this time that seem to be taking us down, rather quickly, were exactly the same actions that were played out by this. We call them the sons of Belial. We'll call it the sons of Belial instead of the law of Belial. Let's call it the sons of Belial. And we have the sons of the law of oneness. I'm saying sons. I'm not saying it in gender form that they're all male. I'm just saying that these were considered children of God. So we can even say replace sons with children, because I know some people go, well, it seems like it's male gender, but it's not. It's not a gender issue. It's just a term used to describe a group of people. So we had these two different groups, and we had the continent of Atlantis. Now, today, in today's world, it's pretty much accepted by scientists that Atlantis is a real place. The discrepancies that take place today is the location, because they want to find the physical evidence of. So the physical evidence, there has been some found. Some found some found, and I'm going to first, before I'm getting ahead of myself, because I want to read a little bit before I discuss what's found so far, because it'll be too confusing. So let me backtrack a bit on that one. But it's in the Road of Bimini. That's off of the Bahamas. That's one location, and that was found, and it was found, I think it was discovered under the water in the 70s, maybe late 60s, early 70s. I don't know the exact timeline on that, but it was discovered. So then everyone, and not everyone, but it was put out to the world that this is the things. This is Atlantis. Now we know Atlantis existed because we have this roadway, this beautiful roadway, found underneath the ocean, right off of Bimini. So, and then there's some discoveries that have been made more in the area of Greece, and then there's some that have been made more in Europe. And they say, well, where was Atlantis? And Atlantis was all of these places. It wasn't just one. So the discrepancies are occurring because the scientists are trying to find the one place instead of realizing it was a huge continent. And when it started, and it had about 200,000 years of which it was in existence, of which up to about 19,000 BC is when it started to turn. Before that, it was a beautiful place. It was a very lush environment, and very filled with love, filled with respect for one another, filled with high advanced technology, filled with healing temples, beautiful healing temples, filled with schools, universities, higher learning, brilliant minds, technology beyond what we can possibly imagine today in today's world, beyond that. Different flying crafts, telepathic communication between individuals was common. So it was a much more advanced civilization than we have today. And as it progressed from the law of one, those that follow the law of one. And we also have those that follow the law of Belial, which is power, seeking power, corrupt in power. They began to fight. They began to not to how do I say? Um, I imagine it. Oh, Courtney, so I'm just seeing Courtney here says, I imagine it like we were a volcano spying out of the water at all time. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. I've been drawn to Atlantis, my favorite movie as a kid. Yes, yes. Down to the crystals powering vehicles. Yes, crystal power definitely was what was used, and it was also because it was also to be understood that this is the beginning of civilization on the planet. So we not only have those that we think of as being just born here on Earth, and then we think of the Palladians or the Syrians or the Arcturians, and we think of those as alien beings. Well, we were all together in Atlantis. We were all together in Lemuria. It wasn't like it was thought of that these were alien beings. We were together, and it was more of a unified consciousness and love. And technological advancements came through the brilliance of the different races. So it's not that we were the only ones and that we were the superior ones and then we have the aliens. It's no, we began together. And then they separated from us pretty much because we started to get denser in our vibration, and they no longer benefited by being together with us. So they left the planet, if that makes sense. um, Almost like Pangea. Yeah, true, Courtney, almost like Pangea. So they left the planet. So they left us, but they left us with the technology and in communication with still those that are very much within the law of one. So still able to be in constant communion, because the law of one, those following the law of one, and those that were in the leadership roles in the law of one were those that were highly, highly attuned to spirit and were able to communicate very as a matter of fact, instead of it's something that they had to learn. It was just a matter of fact. It just simply is, because that was where they were at in their consciousness, in their awareness. They were not ever corrupted by any of the lower energies. They came into the planet very high. They weren't corrupted by greed. They weren't corrupted by power. They weren't corrupted by anything. Those that were the sons of Belial were corrupted. They sought power. The crystals in the earth, the crystals that were used to power the vehicles and power the buildings, and that was their form of electricity. That was their form of healing. They used crystals to heal. They understood science of sound and healing. They understood so much more than we do today. We're very rudimentary in what we understand as far as sound healing and laser technology. They were much more advanced than that. And the sons of Belial saw that as an opportunity then to try to harness that very powerful energy for ways that were not holding a reverence to life, ways that were not aligned with the creator, with God, ways that were self-serving, selfish, arrogant, and not at all responsible with the power of which the technology offered. They wanted to harness it. They wanted to create and did create at that time a slave race by taking advantage of people and using people, humans, other humans, as experiments in labs that were horrific, and did all sorts of things to um, take away from the individual's experience, what we think of sort of like lobotomies in our time is one of the words we use of the things that were done to people. They used extreme mind control to make people into slaves dependent upon them and serving the elites of that group of people, the sons of Belial. They used technology to create machines and things like I'm thinking of what's popping into my mind today is where we are with AI. Like AI, but used in a destructive way, creating robotic type fighting machines um, to enslave and to create fear and to have power. The sons of the law of one were not at all um, involved in any of that activity. They were totally against that activity, and that's where the problems began. The sons of Belial were constantly looking to initiate battle to get control of the most powerful crystals that were under the control of the law of one, for they were the responsible group. They understood the power and they held to the law of one. So they did not release control to the sons of Belial. There was the battle that took place. Now, if we look at what's going on in our world at this time, we look at the destruction, we look at the fear, we look at what's happening in the world, the warring that's going on. We look at what's in the consciousness of people, the judgment, the jealousies, the hate, the fear. All of that energy stems from the sons of Belial. That does not come from the law of one. The law of one was the original law of the land. That's what first was in place when the earth was colonized, and throughout time, over time, it became corrupted into the sons of Belial. They went more for the power because they wanted world domination. They understood the crystals were the power source and more powerful than we understand crystals today. They were huge crystals. I mean, some of them were miles wide and many, many miles high, and they used colors that were emitted from them for all sorts of things of which we do not have knowledge of currently. And it was once again, a highly advanced technological race. And when they fought the sons of Belial and the law of one, those that followed the law of one, there was a first fall in Atlantis, and I think it was about 17,500 BC. I think it's about that time. And then there were floods, and there was all sorts of destruction. And then there was a second fall, and there was some breaking up of the land, and it resulted into the splitting of the continent into islands. And the island of which the sons of Belial were on, I believe, was the Aryan Island. It's Aryan Island. And that's where we in this time period, we have the understanding and the history of the Aryan race. And we have that as the one that put that forth was the one we know as Hitler. That the Aryan race, wanting all of one kind of people and wanting to hold the power and domination, world domination. And it comes from this period in Atlantis. And So there was another island called Oji, um, that had some with the law of one and some of the sons of Belial. And then we had Poseidia, I think it is, Poseidia. And that is all the law of one. That's was the center, the hub. That's where the crystal, the major, the more powerful crystals were housed on that isle. And that's where all the law of one existed. So we had the fighting back and forth because of the sons of Belial wanting to try to take control on the island of Poseidia to get that crystal so that they can have world domination. So now I want to reference a few sources here that bring a little bit of light to this, since it's not just coming from me, because it's not a physical thing that we can go and we can dig up and say, okay, this is it. This is Atlantis right here, where it's located in whatever part of the world. We have many different psychics along the way, and many people kind of scoff at psychics and go, they really don't know, it's just they're charlatans. They're just out to trick people. And that I'm not going to say that's not the case, because there are some that are, and they're just like any other profession. There are some that are not really holding in their integrity. But that doesn't make everybody like that. So it's not good to lump everybody into that group. There are some very prophetic individuals who have really served the world in such a way as to restoring good and health to individuals who were sick and who needed help. And one was a gentleman named Edgar Casey, and he's one of the most famous prophetic seers of our time. And what makes him famous also is the amount of readings that he did for people and places, and the degree of accuracy. I believe he's known to have been in the high 80s for accuracy, which is really, really, really good, because no one's accurate 100% of the time. And if they tell you they are, they're believing that they are, but it's a good possibility that they're not. Okay, but very high levels of accuracy are what you want to look for. And Edgar Casey certainly had that. And I think he was in the 1930s, 40s is when he was practicing, and he really made great strides in the field of prophetic, giving readings to people for health, people who were really sick and had nowhere to turn. He'd give the readings, and the people followed what his advice was, and they were cured. So there was so much good going on through this individual. And he told also of Atlantis. One of his, I believe it was Atlantis, was mentioned in his readings hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. He was known as the sleeping prophet, because he would lie himself down and allow himself then to go into a sleep state, and then he would channel through the information that was recorded by his secretary. It's said that one of the reasons why he went kind of into that state was because when he was awake and aware, his belief system kind of got in the way, because he had a very Christian belief system. So it kind of got in the way of what he was doing. So he would allow himself to go into the sleep state and transmit the communication that was coming through him. And I believe it is that if we look at his past lives, I believe he was a very high priest in Egypt. I believe he was a very high priest in Egypt. And my recalling of him, I may not be doing full justice to him, because this individual was truly a great soul that shed lots and lots of light upon the planet, and really tremendous respect for him. So here, and he also, what was founded in his name is the ARE. It's the Association for Research and Enlightenment, and it's in Virginia Beach. And his family, his sons, have are at that center, and all of his readings are held at that center. And today they give classes and seminars and all sorts of great stuff happening there, events happening there for teaching metaphysical information. So here I wanted to read Edgar Casey on Atlantis. I want to just share this. And it says, from the reading 364-3, says, yes, we have the subject, the lost continent of Atlantis, and those conditions, as has been said, much data has been received from the time to time through psychic forces as respecting conditions in and through the period or ages of this continent's existence. That the continent existed is being proven as fact. The position as the continent Atlantis occupied is that as between the Gulf of Mexico on the one hand and the Mediterranean upon the other. Evidences of this lost civilization are to be found in the Pyrenees and Morocco on the one hand, British Honduras, the Yucatan, and America upon the other. There are some protruding portions within this that must have at one time or another been a portion of this great continent, the British West Indies or the Bahamas, and a portion of the same that may be seen in the present if the geological survey would be made in some of these, especially or notably in Bimini and in the Gulf Stream through the vicinity. These may be even yet determined. One of the most fascinating sets of readings Edgar Casey ever did was about Atlantis, its discovery, history, and destruction. He prophesied that a new land would appear in 1968 to 69. So that was pretty good. Off the east coast of North America, the so-called rising of Atlantis. It was, in fact, during the time that the Bimini Road was discovered in the Atlantic Ocean. After all these years, the issue is still being debated by archaeologists and scientists, but the verdict is not out yet. Edgar Casey maintained that Atlantis was the first civilization, which was technologically superior to even our own, and that its last surviving islands have disappeared somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean some 10,000 years ago. Casey revealed that the size of Atlantis was equal to that of Europe, including Asia in Europe. He saw visions of this continent of the past, which had gone through three major periods of division. The first two occurred around 15,600 BC, when the mainland was divided into islands. As I said, the island of Pisidia, Ogi, and Arian. He claimed that the Atlanteans were well versed in technology that harnessed the power of the quantum world. This included the use of crystals and sound waves for healing, elevators and connecting tunnels that operated by compressed air streams, quartz crystal science that was used to mine gold, copper, and silver from the earth. Atlanteans were adept at using silicon chips at levels unrivaled in the modern world. The crystal skull, for example, was cut with such infinite precision that no known modern tool could have replicated the job. They were familiar with the amplification power of crystals in laser technology and memory chips. They made extensive use of mass mental telepathy, psychokinesis, astral projection into the fourth dimensional consciousness. Edgar Casey said the people of Atlantis had constructed giant laser-like crystals for power plants, and that these were responsible for the second destruction of the land. Casey blamed the final destruction of Atlantis on the disintegration of their culture on greed and lust. According to Casey, and he's got that here too, two rival parties fought for control of the Atlanteans in its final days. The children of the law of one who wanted to return to a spiritual stewardship of the land based on natural laws, based on the universal laws. The other group, the sons of Belial, wanted to exploit natural resources for material gain. The chief focus of their conflict was a third class of dull, half awake subhumans used by the sons of Belial for slave labor. The children of the Law of One wanted to enlighten these beings by raising their consciousness. The sons of Belial wanted to keep them in ignorance and exploit them for their own gain. Before the legendary land disappeared under the waves, Casey revealed that there was an exodus of many Atlanteans to ancient Egypt. He attributed the biblical great flood of Noah as a result of the sinking of the last huge remnants of Atlantis. He also revealed that many Atlanteans managed to escape in hope to preserve a record of their civilization, created two separate archives with all their history and accomplishments so it could be preserved for posterity. One of these archives was revealed to be buried under the Sphinx's paws in Egypt. Recent geological research has been done in the area using new technologies and discovery, and during such, one Discovery Channel special researcher confirmed that it is possible to see that there is a room under the left paw of the Sphinx. But the Egyptian Directorate of Antiquities does not allow excavation in that area for any reason. So the Egyptian government stopped any further exploration once it was found that there are chambers beneath the Sphinx's paws. So that was from Edgar Casey. And there are several others that also, including myself, that come to the same information. That which came to me, that which is given to Edgar Casey, and that which is given to others as well. So it's to say, if we think fact or fiction, it is fact, it's not fiction. And one of the most famous that is the Greek philosopher Plato. And Plato tells all about, in a true respect, not fiction, all about Atlantis, and is very detailed. And that was back in, I think, 600 BC, back in 600 BC. And he tells about it, and it was given before that, as our history, all of history is. It's an oral recording, and then somebody writes it down. So before Plato, I believe it was given orally to a high priest who wrote it down, who passed it along, and Plato came by that information. And that information was in Greece. And Plato was that Greek philosopher, that teacher in Greece, because Greece was also part of Atlantis. So in that culture, the story remained, the history remained, and it was told, and told over and over again. And it made its way into our modern understanding, and we all can access the information that Plato has recorded. And that is one of the features that really led scientists more of the present day to actually believe in the existence of Atlantis, and also coupled with the findings that archaeologists have been having throughout the years. One such was discovering the road in Bimini. So yeah, it definitely existed. It was an ancient civilization, and it's what we come forth from. As we come forth through our many, 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 many past lives, based on what we were experiencing at that time, based on, did we come under the influence of the Law of One, or did we come influenced under the sons of Belial, under that falling into, and this is something that any human being can come again and does deal with, it is temptation. It's temptation. Do I follow the law of one? Meaning, do I follow God? Do I follow spirit? Do I connect to source? Do I choose to live a life in the field of love? Do I choose to respect myself and others? Do I choose to treat others and myself with kindness? Do I have a reverence for all life? Do I attune to spirit? Do I allow myself to be guided by the inner voice? These are the ways of living a life according to the law of one? Or do I seek material gain? And do I do so through means that are not respecting other human beings? Do I use people? Do I agree with the use of people to increase my own power, my own wealth, my own status? And we see that very much in the world today. We see that the use of people, and even heading in the direction of the use of AI in such a way to make it into a superior information that we can utilize. Even I saw some people even saying that it's smarter than the average bear here, that there's so much that it already contains because it's already been programmed with everything that's out on the internet. It has so much knowledge in it. But we must remember that it is a device of which can be used for good, or a device that can be used for evil purposes. And everything that exists can be used in this way. And it's for mankind to decide how they want to proceed, for each individual to decide what it is they choose. AI is not a life form. It's not a sentient being. It's not now, nor will it ever be. It does not have the ability to go beyond what it knows in the five senses. It does not have the ability to have extrasensory perception, for one. It does not have the ability to create that which has not yet been created. It only knows what it knows. Not a life form, not a sentient being. So there are people now that are beginning to get confused in that area, and it will come a time in our experience that we will be facing that, where AI is being presented as a life form, and therefore it should have rights just as a human does. And AI is not a life form. AI is a program. And we need to remember that, and we need to recall what happened in Atlantis. As we live our day-to-day life and we make the choices that we make, we need to recall our history. And with that, I'm going to say we're going to take a station break, and we'll be back to discuss some more. Stay with me. Thanks.
Looking for a holistic solution? Look no further than LimestreetWellness.com. Lime Street Wellness is a full-service Reiki therapy center offering in-person and distant Reiki sessions. Additionally, Lime Street Wellness is committed to helping clients co-create healthier outcomes with hypnosis, QHHT, and intuitive advice. Lime Street Wellness is committed to helping all that are seeking to co-create better health, peace of mind, and greater freedom. Reiki Master Kevin Mackey uses energy medicine, hypnosis, mindfulness, and intuitive guidance to assist in uncovering, understanding, and removing any blocks or energy cords or mental mindsets that may be intruding and causing needless suffering. Visit Lime Street Wellness today at LimestreetWellness.com. That's LimestreetWellness.com.
Hi, welcome back. I'm just looking over the comments here. Courtney says, my grandma always represents as an owl to me, or It's my sign. And tonight, it's the first thing I noticed. You, an owl on your bookshelf behind you. Yes, there's an owl on my bookshelf. I always carry an owl. An owl is always with me. There are two animals that will always be with me. There's an owl, and then there's a black panther. Both are my animals. But yeah, if you saw the owl and you thought of your grandma, absolutely, I would say that's a sign that your grandmother's with you. Because it's the first thing that popped into your head. It was the first hit you had before your thought got in there and said, "Is this or is this not?" You already knew right off the bat. Boom, it's my grandma, and that's where we are when we're experiencing that intuition, that voice within. It's we have to say this is the first thing that comes up before I start with my conscious mind to question things. It's the first initial feeling that I got. That's the one I always want to stay with. I don't want to allow myself to talk myself into or out of something when my inner knowing has already given me the answer. So that's it. I love the way that you brought that forth. That's beautiful, Courtney. Thank you. And we are still kind of slaves. Yes, and that's the purpose for me giving this talk, and helping to explain, create the setting of where we came forth from. Where we came forth from. Yes, it's all coming back. History does repeat itself. We go in what's called cycles. So, being that Atlantis was so technologically advanced, they had naturally the capability to connect psychically. They were in constant communication. It was a way of being, just like breathing. So they knew that the fall was coming before it came. So they had time to relocate the information that they needed to relocate to different parts on the globe, different places. And Egypt was one of the places. So, yes, under the Sphinx pause, and the Great Pyramid of Giza was also a power station used with crystals within it for the Atlanteans at that time. So crystals are placed at different locations. The major crystals, one I believe is in Mount Shasta, California, in Telos, under the mountain. It's under the ground. There other one is in Egypt, in the pyramid, and there's another one I'm gonna where was it? Andy? No, Tibet. I think it's Tibet. I'm not sure, but I think it's Tibet. I could be wrong, but I think it's Tibet. But they, so there's a underneath the Sphinx's paw. It's also said that that's where they had placed a lot of their knowledge, a lot of their information, a lot of their texts, a lot of their recorded history in a library safe underneath the Sphinx's paw. So it's there for prosperity. It's there posterity, so that we can eventually, when we're ready, we can bring that information up and utilize it. But right now, we are not ready. We are in no way yet ready, and we can see that by what's going on in our world. We've got a ways to go yet. We are in the midst of this experience that we're having between those that we can say are holding to the law of one, and those of which we can say are holding to the ways of the sons of Belial. Those that want master control over everyone and everything. Those that have chosen, they chose the darkness. They chose power. They were corrupted by power, and they've remained so. And here today, in the world of which we're experiencing, there's very much that corruption of power. And that is something we all face in a human experience at one time or another. We've all had our own falls in consciousness. We've all experienced being corrupted by the different, greed or lust or power, wanting power, or doing things of which were not in accordance with the law of one. Um, And then once we do those things, we are not forever doomed. It's for us to come back and to realize, and this is how the law of karma first came into effect. This is where karma comes from. So in Atlantis at that time, well, those that chose the darkness now, when they want to experience not being of the darkness, then they have to come back and they have to begin to atone for what experience they had. So they have to make different choices. So we get to pay back and release ourselves from that energy, because it's all energetic, release ourselves from that. And that's where karma comes in. Karma is a continuation of action. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that, oh, well, you did something bad, so something bad's going to happen to you. No, it means a continuation of action. It means that you get to choose as it comes back at you. You get to choose now how you respond. And if you've grown spiritually, you'll choose to respond in accordance with love. If you have yet to grow, you may choose to respond in darkness. Depends on where you are within consciousness, where any of us are within consciousness at the time. So we are constantly an evolving being. We are created first and foremost from the Creator. We are light. We are created as love, by love, to love. But we can lose our way along the journey of life. And things happen, and then we are given an opportunity always to make it right, to make it we use the word right, to make a different choice, to make a higher choice, to grow spiritually, to return to love, We're always given that choice. So no matter where one may be in their moment, in their consciousness, we always want to hold out for the highest for them. We always want to say within our minds, they may not be choosing love, but I'm going to say, may they choose love with Godspeed. May it come to them with Godspeed, meaning boom, very quickly, that they make a choice for love. And that's that, not condemning them. That's not saying they never will, because they will eventually one day. But that day is just not today. But it is to say that we are responsible for our own energy, our own actions. So let me choose this day to act in accordance with love. And that's the highest and best that we can do. So let me do all my thoughts, words, deeds, and actions be with love. Be with love. And when we focus there, once again, we're energy, vibration. And the more of us that do that, the higher the vibration rises. And now we're helping those around us to rise. They have the opportunity to do so because we're impacting the field. We're always impacting one another. And if we're impacting the field with love, then love is what's present. And then love spreads. Just like if it's darkness, darkness spreads. So it's for us to be consciously aware of where we are within our own life experience, what we are doing. Yes, we get to redeem ourselves. We get to reclaim. Because it is an illusion to believe that we are not of the law of one, that we are not of that oneness. To believe that we can be anything other than that is only because we've chosen to experience that which is not of love. So it takes us out of the field. We go out of the field, but we can easily come back into the field. We can repent, we can forgive and come back into the field. So we reclaim it because we've lost it. We've lost it. So I want to read a little bit here, that one that was written through me years ago as a book, which I've yet to publish. But it's about Lemuria and it's about Atlantis. And it's lengthy, so I'm going to start here in the middle. So, a truly peaceful and loving land had rapidly developed as the light beings were still close to the Creator. There was no veil of separation in existence like that of today. There was nothing separating us from God, from the Creator. There was no veil. We were easily connected at all times. The earth was light and the land was lush. It was the home to hundreds of thousands of individuals who chose to live on Mu, on Lemuria, on Atlantis, to experience life in the physical form. Procreation was easy and many began to reproduce. At that time, birthing was an easy and painless, swift process. Unlike today, there were no songs sung of birthing horrors, no badges of honor for pain and distorted labor. Birthing was a natural process of smooth transition from one form to another. It was very simple. Life was meant to live and be free. Homes were large and housed many extended families and animals. The people were very bright and talented. They created magnificent works of art and architecture. The paintings, sculptures, and buildings were marvelous and wondrous beauty. The colors were bright and pure. The homes had plumbing and were quite lavish by today's standards. Each home also had property, lots of land. The schools taught all to read and write and speak the language. They used telepathy to communicate and speak at a distance, like we use cell phones today. There were no diseases, as all knew their oneness. No separation, all were one with the Creator. They were peaceful. Now, as each child grew, they were taught to live by the law of one. There were those who were the leaders or elders. The leaders and elders formed communities and organized activities. They were in charge with operations of running the communities. They were responsible for setting up systems of government, so to speak. The laws of the universe were taught in the schools by the elders, sort of spiritual leaders. All respected the elders. These elders were, as we said, beings of light. They were androgynous beings, as they were both male and female energy. Each was able to reproduce their own young asexually. The elders were each parents of several children. The communities began to develop as many souls chose to enter. As many more souls reproduced, the population grew. All were close to the Creator and lived peacefully. Now the land developed and the people began to spread out and form different communities. The members of the family units in each community formed their own ways of doing things that were in accordance with the teachings of the law of one. Some communities were very involved in technology and transportation. These communities developed a means of travel to explore other areas. Flying machines, balloons, very creative in nature. The planet had many places where souls sought to develop. Atlantis existed during a part of the same time as Lemuria. However, some other areas did not fully hold to the teachings of the law of one. And here we go. And not all lived in peace and harmony as the Lemurians did in Atlantis. The land of Lemuria was located in the Pacific, and Atlantis was located in the Atlantic Ocean. There were two very different lands. Lemurians were all peaceful and at one with the Creator, and they lived in accordance with the law of one. They were very light beings. They were light beings. The communities had their different ways of living, and they chose to focus on, but all lived in harmony. There was no hunger or homelessness. There were no crimes against humanity. Each lived in awareness of their oneness with the universe. The land flourished and the population grew to about 600 million. All lived in peace. Imagine that. That was the way of it. The schools taught the young how to develop language and advanced mathematics of the universe. They learned how to care for their physical forms and to live in the law of one. The communities were different in the outside appearance only. For on the inside, all their beliefs and ways of living were of oneness. The original group of elders taught the future inhabitants well. They were great teachers. The civilization developed and grew until the destruction. The land shook and crumbled into the sea. This was caused by a catastrophic or cataclysmic earthquake. Very, very sad. The result was mass destruction of creative forces. All had lived in harmony. The destructive force was not set in motion by the Lemurians. This is the forces in the earth where were to seek for readjustment. The Atlanteans were also a very advanced race. They were very involved in technology and working with the powers contained within the earth, such as crystals. Now, the Atlanteans were a highly intelligent group from other galaxies and also included some Lemurians. Atlanteans grew and developed well. Most of the Atlanteans lived according to the law of one. However, not all did. Some started out pure, and as they developed certain powers, they became what we will call corrupted. This led them to enter into a state of illusion, and as a result, they began to believe that they could control themselves and others. They began to believe that they themselves were to be of extreme power. They started to experiment with the powerful crystals. They also began to experiment on man. Yes, experiment on man. They used mind control, as I said before, to have man behave the way they wanted them to. Men behave the way they wanted them to. This was in violation of the individual's free will and against God, the Creator's law. Man developed his own set of laws. The time of living in peace had vanished. It was ended by the Atlanteans, who were blinded by the lust for power. Great minds. However, these minds became muddled and drifted away from the light. They became heavier and began to lose their connection to the universe. They began to lose touch with their oneness. They were pulled into believing that they had to do everything themselves, that they themselves held the power. They sought to become stronger and use the powers they harnessed, which resulted in the catastrophic destruction. Their power came back upon the land and destroyed the lands known as Lemuria and Atlantis. This has been a very simple and rough description of the events. It illustrates how the misuse of power by some affected all. Those that lived in peace suffered along with those that sought to pull away from the light. All were affected, as all are one. The cosmos is part of the all. In the oneness of all life, the earth had absorbed destructive forces from other planets and star systems. This contributed to the severe imbalance of Earth's energies, along with the Atlantean destructive forces that caused the need to rebalance. As such, the catastrophic breakup of the continents occurred. This released the negative forces from within the Earth's energy system. It is to be understood that the Earth is a living planetary being with an energy system that is to be balanced, just as man is a living being whose energy system also requires balance. As yet, many do not consider this to be so. Ask a scientist if it is so, and your answer will be an astounding yes. We have discovered two lands that we have discussed two lands that were the centers of the beginning of civilization on Earth. We sought to explain in a simple, straightforward manner what happened. We didn't go into details, such as discussing the individuals involved or giving names, specific dates, or other details that would paint a clearer picture in the mind of the reader to read into. There is no place for blame here. All have developed their own system to correct their past actions that were not in alignment with the Creator. Thus, the system of karma was born. This system may be thought as a plan to adjust and pay off past believed debts that were incurred by negative actions, and in part the arrangement made between souls before they entered the Earth sphere. The reason we spoke about the beginning of civilization on Earth was to show how man lived in harmony, as shown by the Lemurians. They were not all of the same color or size or education or mental abilities, but they all lived peacefully together. Why is that? It's simply because they lived in the accordance with the law of one. They knew their divine birthright. They knew that they were one with God, the one creator of all things. They had no fears, doubts, or needs for survival instincts. They knew that they were in control as the universe provides for all. Whatever they felt they needed, they received. So there was no doubt for anything. This resulted in the peaceful, fun-loving, harmonious existence. No prisons, no jails, real or imagined. This was the land of Oz, the Garden of Eden, the paradise. And yes, the Garden of Eden. Now, you say, how is it that this could be so? And then we get into the story of Adam and Eve, and I won't go there right now because that's for another night. But we are at the place where it is so, and we have to say to ourselves, our role in this played out here at this time, in this great awakening, this great shifting of consciousness here. We can choose to align. We can choose love. We can choose to step into the field of love, to focus our attention on love, to release the doubt and the fear, and to let those that play in that energy. We choose to move forward, to march on in the field of love. The more of us that do that is the more the energy of the earth returns to that awareness, that consciousness. And that's what we want to do here and now. Reclaim our oneness. Reclaim our oneness. May we have every thought, act, deed, action of which we do be in love. May we be the change we wish to see. May we be the change of which we inherently know within our hearts is to be brought forth at this time. And that's why we are here now. We have come back through the cycle of time. We are back here now to make it so. So let each of us make the choice of which we feel is in the highest service to ourselves and all others, releasing selfishness, replacing it with selflessness. Step into kindness, thoughtfulness. How can I help another? How can I be of service this day? Truly stepping in action, in thought, in word, and may it be so. I thank you for being with me tonight, Courtney. I thank you for all your commenting here. That's so wonderful. Yes, it's all coming back. History repeats itself. Very good. Love the Panthers. Have a large poster, that in color. Yes, powerful energy of the Panther. Powerful protector. Powerful reclaimer, too. I like that. Reclaim, redeem ourselves. Aspen, thank you for joining us here tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And may you have a blessed week. Thank you, and see you again and talk to you again next Thursday evening here on the Voice of Oneness, your call to awaken. Good night.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.